I'm Diana Iannarone, and if you found your way to this video, I'm guessing there's something in your life that you're not particularly satisfied with, whether it be your career or your relationships or maybe all of it together, but something is leaving you a little bit unfulfilled. And I feel like the first thing I might want to say to you is there's nothing wrong with you. Throughout our life, so often, we have been conditioned to believe that there's something wrong with us. We doubt ourselves, we question ourselves, and it's because we have this voice inside our head that we've heard somewhere throughout our lifetime that keeps replaying and replaying and replaying. If you've watched some of my other videos, you know that I believe that most of us create our belief system before the age of 7. And the way that we create that belief system is we have certain experiences, they could be devastating or not, but during those experiences, we evaluate that situation and we make a conclusion about life. Whether it was just our own view from watching something, experiencing something with our parents, interacting or so on, or with them interacting with us, or because of words that were said to us by our parents that might have left us feeling like who we are is not acceptable, the way that we're being is not acceptable. Now, this isn't about, hey, it's all the parents' fault, especially because I am a parent, so, that doesn't sound great. But the fact is, no parent can give any child exactly what they need because nobody can know precisely what you need. Now, we all know there is plenty of abuse out there. There is plenty of horrific treatment to people. And as a child, we really are helpless no matter what is happening to us. There is really very little, if anything, that we can do. But we can't keep carrying that through our whole life because now we're adults. And once we are an adult, then the quality of our life is entirely and completely up to us. But we don't always feel like it's completely up to us. Because the reason why I say there's nothing wrong with us, is there's nothing wrong with you, or you're not crazy, is because many of us surround ourselves with manipulators. We've used the term sociopath, narcissist, and so on, but really, the term, the label, it doesn't matter. We surround ourselves with manipulators because we're people-pleasing and we want to do more and do whatever we can to get love and acceptance. That's really what we're striving for. And whether you're a man or a woman, if you find yourself in an abusive relationship, and this might surprise you, the premise or what started that is most often related to the relationship between you and your mom. Now, this does not mean that your mom was bad, although it could. But this does not mean your mom is bad. It means that the way that you learned to behave was in part due to that. And so one of the things I always say is, give me an example of the kinds of things you might want to say to somebody that you feel is the problem in your life. And if you look at all those things you might want to say, like you don't listen to me, you belittle me, you don't nurture me, you don't love me, whatever those things are, you might find that you would say the similar things to your mom if you could. Not that I'm suggesting you should. Or perhaps you learned from your mom that, I'm going to walk on eggshells so that dad doesn't get mad. Or I better not say what I feel because I was taught not to rock the boat. That's a big one. I think a big part of the populace has been taught to not rock the boat. And I am here to say that we need to get rid of that idea. Because in the adult world, to create your own happiness, there's going to be things that you do that are going to be considered rocking the boat. And that's reality. And if you want to create the life that you want, then you have to be willing to be courageous. Kind of ignite that warrior within you in order to speak up. Now, what's interesting is most of the healing that you have to do to get the life that you want doesn't require that you actually go back in and say to mom what you wanted to say or say to dad what you wanted to say. It's really a very private experience. And the private experience is about going back into those memories that bother you, upset you, still hold an emotion, and kind of remedy them. Do what you wish you would have done just in sort of an image or in your journal, and you'd be amazed at the power that those experiences have. To go back in and, say, for example, where you were being belittled, make a stand that it's not acceptable, and how dare you, and just keep going. How dare you say those things to me? How dare you make me feel small? How dare you make me feel like I don't matter? How dare you? And all of a sudden you'll be in this anger, and then I'm angry at you because. And these exercises can be very healing. A lot of people don't like to get into their anger, and so what happens is they stay silent, they stay silent, they stay silent, and then boom, all of a sudden something happens and they're really angry, and they're like, I don't know why I'm so angry. Well, you have a cumulative effect of tiptoeing, walking on eggshells, walking a tightrope. All those times that you stayed silent, you have this accumulation of emotion that's going to rattle out when you least expect it. So if you want to create the life you want, you have to take charge of your emotions. And many times people will say, yeah, I don't really want to look at that. I don't really want to deal with that. But if you think of your emotions kind of like a child, and assuming that you are a loving person, because most people that seek out the kind of work that I do are loving people that are trying to figure out why life isn't quite working. Okay. Well, if you're a loving person and you have a child and that child wanted your attention, I'm sure if you could, you would give that child your attention. I encourage you to think of your emotions that same way. That when it comes up, it's saying, hey, I have something to say, I have something I want to share, I have something I'm feeling. And when you stifle it back down, all you're really doing is building up that pressure tank, waiting for the explosion or at least some level of anxiety to come. Matter of fact, many people when they come to me have anxiety. And when they release their emotions, the anxiety goes away. They're connected, okay? I'm not a doctor. I don't prescribe. I don't diagnose. I've just made a lot of choices in my life that led me to understanding things that are helpful to other people. And that's why I do what I do. So the reason I speak about looking at your emotions like they're a child is because I want you to experience them, but privately. Because it is about you doing it in your journal, or of course working with me or a therapist or whoever you might be working with. But you don't have to release your emotions to the people that might have caused the harm. But what releasing the emotions does is it clears all the clutter that is in your mind, and it gets you in a better position to have clarity. And when you have clarity, people can't make you doubt yourself. Sometimes I think the greatest thing that happens when I talk to people, even if it's just the free consult, is I give them permission to believe what they believe to be true. So often, because of our conditioning, we've been taught to doubt. So we question ourselves. And you may have heard the term, as you've been perusing the internet, the term gaslighting. Okay, gaslighting is an example. That's when someone tells you something didn't happen that did, or they didn't say something that they did. Or it can get even sillier than that, like somebody moving something and then saying they didn't move it, or taking it. It could be as simple as, I could swear I had my, the little throw blanket right there on the couch. I don't know where it went. And the other person goes, I don't know where it went. But the truth is, they moved it. Why? It's all part of trying to help you doubt yourself. So to create the life you want, whether it's personal, business, or whatever, the first thing you need to do is assess what your beliefs are and then begin to courageously move away from them onto better ones, beliefs that are more serving to what you want to do. So how are you going to do that? Well, I talk about the relationship with parenting because what we now have to become is the best parent to ourselves. Because if we do that, we're going to offer ourselves love, we're going to offer ourselves kindness, we're going to offer ourselves understanding. And truth be known, the day that we decide we completely, thoroughly, and totally love ourselves is the day that we become free. Because that's the time that we decide we can trust ourselves, we can believe what we believe, it's okay to have our view. And when you think there's something wrong with you, I'm going to suggest the only likely thing that's wrong with you is who you're choosing to surround yourself with. But of course, then you look at it and you say, well, that's a nice thought, Diana, but how the hell am I ever going to get out of this? I have so many years vested in this. I have so many years in this job or this relationship. I can't just walk away. And easily, I would agree that you can't easily just walk away, but I would completely disagree that you can't create a different life or a different situation for yourself. No one can manipulate you without your permission. So if you're being manipulated, you are probably controlled by guilt and shame. And guilt and shame are great emotions if you've done something wrong. But they're not great emotions if it's somebody using them against you to make you feel like you've done something wrong. Not that you have necessarily, but making you feel like you have. And again, this is work or personal. I do both, but in this video I want to focus more on personal relationships. And you may have seen me bring this up before, the power and control wheel. This should be like plastered everywhere so that people know whether the way they're being treated is good or bad. Intuitively, they might be saying, this doesn't feel right, this feels wrong, but if you've been conditioned through a childhood life or whatever where having lots of things in opposition to love are normal, then you start to think, well, this is just the way it is. And I want to say to you, no, it isn't. Loving relationships exist. And I'm not saying that there's no flaws or there won't be any arguments or it's all peaches and cream. In fact, the more you vocalize what's happening, speak openly and honestly, the more communicative you are with each other, the more things you're going to discover about yourself and each other, and the deeper the relationship is going to go. But if you're with an abuser, manipulator, sociopath, narcissist, you can't go deep. There's an illusion that you can, but you will always be at fault. It will always be you that's wrong. It will always be your mistake, and you'll just be chasing your tail, trying to figure out what you can do to make things better. Well, that's an easy statement. To make things better, you must leave. To make things better, you must leave. And you might be saying, but I don't know if he's this or she's this or this. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if they have a diagnosis or a label or they're classified as something. Doesn't matter. What you have to ask yourself every day is, how do I feel when I'm with this person? Am I afraid? You should never be afraid of the person who claims to love you. Never be afraid of the person who claims to love you. You should never feel like you are being stalked. You should never feel like you can't have privacy. If any of those things are present, then you are probably not in a healthy relationship. So I only want to take about 5 more minutes, so this is what I want to say. Number one, this power and control wheel, this particular one is, there's actually several. There's even some I've recently learned for teenagers and for college students and so on. But this one, it's called it's from the Domestic Abuse Intervention Project in Duluth, Minnesota. But it is nationally known in all abuse shelters as kind of an indication of whether or not violence could become real in a relationship. Most people think, unless they've been hit or pushed or whatever, that they aren't in an abusive situation, but that's not true. The things on the list are using coercion and threats, making and or carrying out threats to do something, to hurt him or her, or to threatening always to leave, or threatening to commit suicide, or using intimidation, making you afraid by the way they look at you, or the innuendo of what they'll do, or how they'll ruin your reputation, or whatever the case may be. It's emotional abuse. It's isolation. Someone said to me the other day, well, when someone told me that he was isolating me, I didn't even know what that meant. Well, if you feel like you can't talk on the phone to your friends because he might be listening and say something, then you start to not talk to your friends as much. If you're not supposed to go out, because if you go out, then you have questions that become unbearable, so you just start staying home alone. These are all things that isolate you. If these are the things that you're experiencing, then you are not in a healthy relationship. I am not talking about not compromising. I'm not talking about, somebody asking you not to go somewhere for particular reasons that make some sense. But what I am saying is domestic violence abuse is not always so obvious. When someone is kicking the dog or punching the walls, they're saying, I could do this to you. I could do this to you. Even if they're not saying it, that's what you're picking up on. And so you have this constant vigilance and you're afraid. And that is taxing your body, that is draining your life force, that is something you do not deserve. So beginning today, and I say this so often and it's so simple, you have to become the best, most loving parent to yourself. And in every experiencing that you're encountering, I want you to imagine you're holding the hand of a child. And if they were enduring that experience, what would you do? And maybe you want to do that. So if somebody was yelling and belittling you, you want to put up a boundary. It's not acceptable for you to talk to me this way. It's not okay for you to say that to me. And truthfully, in real abusive relationships, you're going to say that and it may not make a difference. But what's happening when you're doing that is you're starting to remember your worth. You're starting to remember you have the right to say no. And as Gavin de Becker says in The Gift of Fear, that I highly recommend everyone read, and he's the he's very good at indicating whether or not there's going to be violence. He's supposed to be, I think, the world's leading, I don't know what they actually call him, but in determining whether or not violence will be present. And no is a complete sentence. It needs no explanation. And anybody trying to change your no into a yes is trying to manipulate you. So you have to decide that you love yourself, that you want an abundant life, abundance of love, abundance of relationships, and comfort in your life. And if those things aren't present, within you have the power to change it. And the way to do it, as I said, is you imagine that child. If somebody was degrading that child, you would step in. You would say, that's not okay, that has to stop. And if it didn't stop, you would leave. You would take that child out of that relationship. That's what you need to do for you and for your children if you're being belittled. So this is simply about the ultimate love of yourself and about trusting that inner knowing inside of you. Don't let anybody create that doubt that what you see, what you hear, what you're experiencing is not true. And when you finally do wake up, if you're in one of these relationships, you're going to try and tell people and they're not going to believe you. And you have to not care. Because if you're a fully grown adult that loves yourself completely, you will be independent. I believe what I do more than anything is I help people live an independent life. And that means that no one holds their lifeline. No one holds your lifeline but you. But right now you might feel like your job holds your lifeline, your partner holds your lifeline, your children hold your lifeline, but you hold your lifeline. I'm not talking about, if you've got certain disabilities or certain cares that you need. I'm talking in life in general. And if you feel you don't have the economic means, you can change it. If you feel you don't have the health, very often I believe, not a doctor, you can change that too. So you decide you want to be empowered and then you find the resources to help you do it. Because I feel that it's such a need for people to find their own power within them. That's why I started Red Thorn Solutions in an effort to help people get what they want in life. And if you are in an unhealthy situation and you're trying to find a way out, you don't want to get any outside services to do it, I might encourage you to read my book, Me and My Shadow. It is about moving from fear and control to love and freedom. It's premised, of course, on my journey through to that. And there is life after this. You are going to be okay. And whatever you want is yours. All you have to do is decide and turn yourself internally instead of externally. You have to start giving the love you've given to everybody else to you. And that's when you'll see your life will dramatically change. I want to thank you for watching. I want to thank everyone for watching the YouTubes and looking at my blog and so on and so forth. And I have a couple of Facebook pages. standing up, a path to being whole is one. But bottom line is, decide that you are the priority in your life, and then just watch the magic happen. If you do want a free consultation, you can call me at 631-886-1094, or you can write me, which I prefer. You inbox me at diana@redthornsolutions.com. I thank you very much for watching, and begin your life now.